Michael is the Operational Technology Manager for 3M's Film and Material Science, Engineering, and Technology Division. His passion for creativity and innovation is applied to operations from the shop floor to manufacturing management. During his more than 34-year career at 3M, Michael has worked in manufacturing operations, process development, product development, Lean Six Sigma, and supply chain. A true leader, a true practitioner. Michael, we're honored to have you with us. Very much looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Jose. My pleasure to be here. Boy, you hit on a lot of my favorite words: innovation, excellence, and obviously the digital angle, the digital transformation piece. So I'm going to switch to screen mode. Can you guys see my screen, Jose?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, excellent. Well, again, we're going to cover a lot of ground today, and we're going to focus on operations, which really means manufacturing. You know, where the work is done, where the products are made. You know, in my 34-year career with 3M, when I started, 3M actually stood for manufacturing, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. That's a mouthful, isn't it? And today we're not a Minnesota company. We're based here in Minnesota. We're finally today it's above freezing. It's 32 degrees Fahrenheit right now. And we used to be a mining company. We really don't do mining anymore, but we are still a manufacturing company. And I guess that's the main point. We legally changed our name in our centennial year to just 3M, the number 3 and the letter M. But our roots are in manufacturing, and we are still in manufacturing today. So I'm going to give you a quick summary. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. We're going to start with talking about our innovation engine. You've probably heard about 3M Innovation, and we're going to talk about how that applies to operations. We're going to talk about building a team, really a dream team of people that can help with this digital transformation. We're going to look at some key systems. How do you identify where to start? How do you connect methodologies and best practices and tools and then make it all digital at the end of the day? So we're going to talk a lot about how you connect the dots, and then specifically applying that concept to a couple of case studies, a couple of systems that we've been working on very diligently to try to achieve that highest level of sustainable excellence. So again, the focus of the day will be on leading this digital transformation. So I want to specifically speak to the leaders, the people that are initiating these efforts, that are driving these efforts, that are trying to bring it home and actually implement. So if you look at the news, and there are tons of articles, if you search digital transformation, Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, you don't see a lot of specific success stories in operations. Go back to the left here. In August of 2015, McKinsey was saying few manufacturers are actually doing this. They don't have a comprehensive, coordinated way of achieving it, and that was only 6 years ago. The middle articles from Harvard Business Review, that was just a couple of years ago, and they're saying a high percentage of those companies that try this actually fail. They don't fit it into their overall business strategy. That was just 2 years ago. A more recent article talks about the cultural aspect of this, and we're going to spend some time talking about that today. What does it take to have a digital transformation? Is your culture ready for it? Where should you start? How do you get a foothold? You know, in reality, this is a huge opportunity. And, you know, we've seen it, we've been on the journey for a while, but I think, you know, those articles are probably true of 3M as well. We're not where we need to be. I won't say we're on the leading edge. We're probably still catching up. And we're asking the questions these days in 2021, what new capabilities, skills, and mindsets will we need in our organization? In other words, if we do a digital transformation or bring in digital tools, will our culture support that? Will our people be ready for it? And so we spend a lot of time talking about the people aspect of this to prepare, implement, and do this really, really well, and not have a failure because of the people and the culture. So Jose mentioned, you know, my title is actually Operational Technology Manager. Our operational technology team is focused on connecting these ideas. They could be tools, methodologies, practices, benchmarks, and we want to try to deliver maximum value to our operations. Really, we want to support everybody from the shop floor all the way to the manufacturing director and above, and help them do their job better, make them more efficient, more effective, and actually more fun. And what we found over the years is copy exact rarely works. So we're going to use the word connect a lot. We're going to connect the dots. That's really our team's job, is to pick a tool, a method, a software, whatever it might be, and connect it with other stuff that's relevant, stuff that's going to fit into our culture and help us drive business results. So it's an awesome job. I've had a lot of fun doing it. I've got a great team. We'll talk more about them later on. But really, that's our focus, is scouting and connecting the dots and implementing to support operations. Okay, so let's talk about just the general transformation process. I mentioned I was going to talk to leadership specifically. So this is going to be a high level, just a piece of what transformation looks like from a leadership perspective. And I often fall back on this model. It's the define, energize, launch, execute. Great leadership model for creating a bias for change, trying new things, really transforming an organization. And there's several bullets after each. Today we're going to talk mostly about building the team. We're going to talk about the innovation model, and we're going to talk about connecting the dots. But there's certainly other aspects to this transformation process. A couple of highlights here. The current state, what is your business case? What is your motivation to change? What is your mindset? Are you ready for change? I think at our company, we've talked about digital transformation for many years. I don't know if we necessarily knew what that meant or we had the right mindset, but we kept asking the question, should we be doing this? Is it right for us? Is the timing right? In the energize phase, we're constantly circling back to this energize phase, communicating the case for change and setting a bias for action. And I love this statement. We'll talk more about this later, is getting employees into the infinite game. There is no end state here. It's a continuum. And that phrase, the infinite game, comes from the author Simon Sinek. We'll talk about him later on, but really a constant communication cycle to get people ready for this change and excited about it. During the launch phase, we will talk about the innovation model and connecting the dots, but there's also some things called technology roadmaps and even investment roadmaps. How much money are you going to put at this? Do you have the right resources in place? A lot of things to consider during the launch phase. Finally, the execution phase. I think you'll see in the case studies how we're executing, but delivering short-term results and then setting an overall strategy for a longer-term path. So those are the typical transformation activities that we look for from our leaders. As I mentioned, Simon Sinek wrote the book, The Infinite Game. If you are a leader, I highly encourage you to read it. I love how he analyzes how leaders talk, the language that they use. Is their language reflecting a finite game, which has an end state, a goal that can be achieved, or does their language reflect an infinite game, meaning there is no finish line, and it's a perpetual, striving to be better and to be relevant, and in this case, to be digital, right? So we are going to talk about fueling this innovation engine, developing our team, focus on systems, and connecting the dots, all with this infinite mindset. Keep going back to that concept. Again, there's no end goal. There might be some short-term milestones, but there is no end game here. So let's start with building the innovation engine. It's kind of funny. The word innovation has become a little bit cliche. People talk about innovation in their toaster and their home appliances and everything they do these days. But I'm really talking about an innovation process. How you come up with ideas, how you evaluate ideas, how do you move things forward into practice? Not innovation by putting microchips in your toaster. So if you Google innovation model or 3M innovation, you'll probably come up with these bullet points. And the innovation model goes something like this, understand the pain points. Some people refer to that as just understanding the customer, understanding the problem. But I like the word pain. It has a little bit more bias for action. So I really want to get an understanding of what's going on around me. What problem am I trying to solve? What particular pains do we have in operations? Again, all the way from the shop floor to the management. Then we want to explore possibilities. Hey, this is really the fun part. This is the best part of my job, is scouting new opportunities, new ideas, new ways of solving these problems or eliminating this pain. Finally, they're sharing knowledge, and 3M has a reputation for having unique ways of sharing knowledge through forums and poster sessions and other things, and we'll talk more about that. And then there's, of course, the famous 15% time. And so I'll try to debunk some myths about that. And what's really not included, and you won't find this often if you read articles on the 3M innovation model, but it really has a lot to do with building your team and empowering them, turning them loose, not micromanaging. And so we'll talk about what kind of team do you want to apply this innovation in operations. So again, that's the thing we're going to do, is we're going to take the 3M innovation model, which historically has to do with product development, and we're going to apply that in operations, in day-to-day, make the stuff, ship the stuff, test the quality of the stuff, back orders, returns, inventory, all that kind of fun stuff. And we are going to talk a lot about the culture, because innovation isn't necessarily just around technology. It's around culture, and it's around some key systems. And we'll talk about those key systems in operations. Okay, let's step through this innovation model. And the first one is understanding. And from an operations perspective, the way we gather internal voices is we've got various touch points with our internal operations. We have reviews, we have site visits, we connect with our leadership, down to the lean leader level. We have monthly phone calls. Very often those are formal, or informal, saying things like, what's going on in your plant today? What trends are you seeing? What are you struggling with? Is there any help that you need? And just having those regular touch points with management, with plant managers, with lean managers, as well as working side by side with operations on the shop floor. And I can't tell you how important from a leadership perspective that is to get involved, do an executive Kaizen if you must, roll up your sleeves, work side by side with some of your people, and just have a conversation. What makes your job hard? What could we do better here? The next bullet is strategic planning, and I've been fortunate the last few years to work with our strategic planning team, actually coordinate the plan for one of the largest divisions in 3M. And so I get a firsthand look at the strategies, the activities behind the scenes, and how it all fits together. I think that is imperative. If you're not the strat planner, you should get involved in the strat planning process. Find out what's going on, where you guys are going, as a company, as a department, as a division, as a site, even as a value stream. And then finally, there's crisis situations, and it could be a new product launch. It could be an increase in demand. It could be a pandemic. Back in the 80s, we were back ordered on respirators because Mount St. Helens blew up. And my high school happened to be across the street from the factory that made the respirators at the time. So I got a part-time job making respirators as a result of a volcano. So we'll take this level of understanding, we'll take the information from anywhere we can get it to identify the pain points, get a sense of priority, and really the scope of the problems that we're trying to solve. The next part is really understanding and exploring at the same time, because we do a fair amount of external benchmarking. Again, one of the best parts of our job is to talk to other companies. What are they doing? What problems are they solving? What solutions have they found? We do a fair amount with external conferences and looking to talk to other experts, other people that have case studies and stories to tell. We also meet with vendors, authors, and other experts in the field. And again, we're trying to look at industry trends, known solutions, We're looking for opportunities to collaborate. We're also trying to figure out what the competition is doing. So again, we get a greater understanding of what's going on in the world, common problems, but we're also exploring solutions at the same time. How might we address these things? So when you put those two together, you really hit at the core of what we call operational technology. It's a combination of understanding and exploring. And by the way, this is a very similar process for product development. I've just changed some of the words to reflect more of an operations slant. The next part of the model is really digging into exploring these possibilities. And I mentioned the scouting process. So that's a big part of our job. We love doing that. We like talking to people that have solved unique problems. We do put together technology roadmaps. I'm not going to talk about that today. And then obviously, when we come up with ideas, we want a place to trial and experiment with these solutions. Now, the beauty of our team, as Jose mentioned, is we are embedded in the film and materials division in 3M. So we are not part of the corporate staff. We are embedded in a division. So immediately we have access to an operations playground. We've got 13 to 20 of our plants that are always saying, pick me, pick me. When we have an idea, when we've got resources and time to talk about a particular problem, they invite us in and say they want to be part of this pilot or part of this experiment. Now that's represents about 10% of 3M's manufacturing locations. Very often we say it's film and materials first and then friends. So word gets out that we're working on something unique, and people will pick up the phone and call us, and we've had the luxury of being able to work with people outside our division as well. So it's not just a division focused effort. Once we've entered into this process, over here on the left, we ask some pretty common exploring the possibility questions, right? Will it solve the problem? Or maybe just part of the problem. We ask a lot of culture questions. Will it fit, and will it change our culture? What are we really going for? What outcomes are we looking for in terms of behaviors and cultural change? Often we ask, is it a proven solution? I get the question very often, are we looking for startups or very unique solutions, especially in the digital area, or does it have to be proven? And the history over the last couple of years is it's sort of a mix. Some are new to the world and some have been around for a while that we just haven't discovered yet. A big question has to do with our leadership. Is our team ready, and can we get a sponsor? Again, being in a division, we have some resources and we have some sponsorship that's just sort of default. But as we expand to the rest of the company, this is a really important question to ask. Is their team ready? Is their executive leadership ready for a change? Over on the right, the output of this process is part of our sales pitch, if you will, is defining these expected outcomes, expected results, particularly on the behavior side. What are we looking to really change that's going to affect our culture and the way we work? We do a lot of comparison of alternatives and competitors. As you'll see later, we often connect the dots. We connect alternatives and competitors with each other and maybe make a better solution coming out the other end. We are really big on user experience. We spend a lot of time on the shop floor and with the teams talking about the solutions and not just selling them. We want to see the user's reaction. It's great when we get a positive reaction like, oh, this is fun, this is really going to solve our problem and make life easier. And last but not least, of course, we've got a financial justification. People are always asking from finance, what's the payback? So the last thing I'll just mention here is we use a tool called a Pew Concept Selection Matrix to sort out all this stuff. And if you haven't seen that tool, you can just go to Wikipedia and take a look at that. It might help you sort out alternatives as well. All right, so the next part of this is sharing knowledge. And I mentioned earlier, we've got an elaborate system of project reviews, management reviews, peer-to-peer, and poster sessions. Those are all really great analog things. We've been doing them for years. In the year of the pandemic, we've been relying more on social media tools, wikis, Yammer, other platforms to communicate and share ideas. And this is one thing that's really great about our company is we've got a lot of sharing. People like to talk about what they're working on, and offer assistance or advice or even just a thumbs up, thumbs down. So that's a big part of the process. If you don't have a sharing knowledge system, you really need to create one. And finally, 15% time. On the left is a quote from an article where it said that many employees spend up to 15% working on things that have nothing to do with their job's mission. I don't know where they got that quote. It's not exactly how it works. It's really all employees spending up to 15% working on projects ideas that are aligned with your mission. So they're usually adjacencies. They're usually not all that harebrained and completely out of scope. And so really the question is here, do you as a leader inspire employees to play with ideas and innovate? Whether it's 10% time or 20% time or 30% time, or maybe it varies depending on the role and the person, you really need to encourage that. So a couple of comments about building a team. So as I mentioned, I'm very fortunate to have a team of experts, and our job is really operational technology, the scouting, identifying, evaluating, and implementing solutions. You know, a typical approach might be building a team. You might be thinking, well, I probably need some engineers. You know, it's an operations thing, so I need some lean, and you know, Six Sigma is still in fashion. And you know, we could have gone down that path, but I was very lucky in the early days of this to choose my own team and interview everybody and select them. And I used a different model. And I actually went back to my favorite book, The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. And what I did is I wanted a core of innovators, people that were creative, that like to talk about ideas, that like to brainstorm, that were just had a track record of coming up with cool stuff. But I really also needed to have connectors, salesmen, and mavens. And the connectors are the ones that connect people to people. Okay, they make introductions, they have the huge network, they make selling ideas and finding people to get on the bus and get on board a lot easier. So we always have to have a connector on our team. The salesmen are selling solutions to people. You know, they're the persuaders. They're not selling something you don't need, they're selling something you do need. And they're very keen on persuading, convincing, negotiating, saying things like, boy, could we just give this a try? And so that's fantastic. We've got to have a salesman on our team. And then finally, the mavens, you know, and they are the information people. They connect us with new information. Again, I mentioned we do a lot of scouting and looking on the outside, but you really need an information specialist on your team. So this is my model. My team always needs to have a balance of these three rare social gifts with the heart of an innovator to make this work. So if you don't have a team as a leader, you know, look inside, look outside your organization, and try to find these rare skills. Okay, so let's talk about improving key systems, and then we'll get to a couple examples. So our definition of a system is really things working together, this interconnected network. It's an organized scheme or methodology. It's different than the word process, which we usually think of as more of like a piece of equipment or a component. You know, it might be a process might be the engine or the brakes or the tires. The system would be the incomplete transportation system, which would include the car and the stoplights and the roads and everything else. So that's kind of our broader definition of a system. And that's where we start asking the questions, you know, what is going on in the system that needs digital transformation, that needs improvement, that needs a fresh set of ideas. Now, we've identified about 6-7 categories: people, culture, quality, technology, flow, standardization, improvement, and customer. But really that ends up being over 100 unique systems that support operations. And over the last couple of years, we've focused in on the systems over here on the right, you know, our daily management, which is how do we run our operations, how we solve problems, how we communicate on a daily basis, our standard work, which includes our job-based training, onboarding, and all the things related to how the work is done. We've been looking into expanding our work in our visual systems, especially with some of the digital solutions, which even includes things like 5S. Can you imagine a digital 5S system? And then lastly, employee development, e-learning and ongoing employee development. But also, what is that blend pre-pandemic of in-class expert training versus remote learning, self-study, the repetition, the testing, the certification, all those kinds of things. So we want to move, again, from the left here on the principles of good practices of enterprise excellence is the term we use from the Shingo model. Systemic design, looking at these hundreds of systems and trying to design, a better mousetrap. And then there's always a digitization or a digital spin on everything we do, and more so in the last couple of years. Another way of mapping this is to take those systems and just go a higher level to standard work, training, problem solving, analytics, and safety. And you find there's all kinds of overlap. If you can solve any one of these problems, or any one of these systems can be enhanced, you're going to have a lot of overlap in the problems that you're actually addressing during the day. So this is just one way. This is actually a start of our technology roadmap, and I can map solutions to these particular headings and create kind of a landscape of where we need to go in the future. Okay, the last part, the case studies. Let's connect the dots. Let's talk about some specific solutions here. So one of the problems we've been having is just a fundamental daily management system in operations. It's everything from the daily huddle in the morning to the upper tiers that talk about the charts and the graphs, as well as assigning action items and auditing and all kinds of other aspects of this system. What we were finding is we've got a huge hidden factory of data and charts and reports and people looking at different views of the situation. Really takes up a lot of time and energy. And at the end of the day, we've got all this untapped potential. The information is not really translating into action. People aren't feeling empowered. They're feeling like they spend their whole day reporting out data, but they're not doing anything to solve it and really work on the problems. And then we also come into the problem of rework, meaning we solve the same problems over and over again. Today we're green, so we don't have a problem. Tomorrow we're red, and we're solving the same problem we had last week when we were red. So the question we asked is, are we really committed to safety, performance, and improvement, which are the three main things that we want to deliver on a daily basis? And then the question comes up is, should we throw a digital solution at it? Everybody was talking about digital tier boards, and that'll solve your problems. And we thought rushing into this was just going to create more of a mess. It's going to create a digital hidden factory, and it really doesn't do anything to help the managers or the workers improve the way the work is done. So instead, we started foundationally with working on the culture and the mindset and really what are we trying to accomplish with this system on a daily basis. We established some standards. We looked at some different methodologies, different ways of running a daily management system. And then we also talked a lot about critical metrics. We don't want to redo all our production reporting. We don't want to redo what's in our annual report. What are the critical metrics that we need for each operation at each level of the organization? So we connected the dots. We started with a principle-based study. We wanted to be embracing the Shingo model, and we started there. We worked with Mike Martin to talk about leadership and winning and closing the loop on this problem solving, more from a leadership perspective. And then we worked with Shane Yount and the team at CSI. The book is Leading Your Business Forward, to get better clarity, connectivity, and consistency. And this is more on the execution side. How does it actually work? And after years, literally, this is a timeline of 2014, 15, 2016, 17, and 2017 to present. Now we feel like we're ready for some digitization and connecting, metrics to dashboards at lower tiers. In the bottom right here, we've actually got an action log where we're connecting actions to the actual metrics. The second problem that I want to talk about revolves around standard work and onboarding. We have complex operations. We've got a lack of standardization in many cases. Our improvement cycle is all out of whack because we don't necessarily have standards that we're following. And we've had a lot of new employees, either because of growth or because of turnover. So we asked the question, are we creating standards? Are we following those standards? Are we training to standards? And are we improving the standards? Well, we started looking at digital solutions, and this goes way back, and we said rushing into a digital training and onboarding system is really going to not work because we don't really know what the needs of the people are, and we don't really understand standard work, and we don't really understand our improvement process. So instead, we decided to figure out how to capture this expert knowledge, which is really the how-to. It's not the encyclopedia, it's not the drawings, it's not all the reference manuals, it's not the troubleshooting. We want to just started with just how to do the work. We want to make it visual, and we want to make it mobile. And most importantly, and my favorite part, is we wanted to create platforms for improvement. So you can imagine having 3-ring binders locked away in cabinets as training manuals, and the expert knowledge is hidden away. It's not visual, it's not mobile, and there's no way of improving. I've found examples where documents have been locked away for 12 to 15 years, and they haven't been looked at or updated. So rather than rush to a digital solution, we started asking these questions first. And then we went back to fundamentals of standard work and said, let's agree that we need standard work that includes task, time, materials. We want some visualization, and we want a defined outcome. And we spent a lot of years doing old-fashioned standard work charts, like is shown here on the left, just to figure out what's the best way to document that. We started moving a few years ago into a digital platform. We're evaluating and using Dizuki pretty extensively these days. It is visual. It's really YouTube for operations, and it uses a combination of video, photo, and text. And it's also mobile. So we're using mobile devices in our operations to train and onboard our people right where the work is done. And just as we're settling into this and saying, hey, that feels pretty good, we feel like we're digitizing, we feel like we're improving, we start questioning how fast can we create content, how fast can we update content. So we want speed, we want rapid improvement, we want it more collaborative, and we also want multi-language, since we're a multilingual company. So we've started investigating how to use a HoloLens, not just for remote assist, but for remote knowledge capturing and documenting, and then also using natural language processing for translation and voice to text to speed up our ability to capture this expert knowledge. So when you combine these two systems, the standard work system and the daily management system, you really end up with this thing. And here's a couple of the digital examples: the Dizuki, the HoloLens, a combination of Visuant and Microsoft Power BI. And what we found is when you get these two systems working together, you've got a foothold on improvement, on excellence, on branding. People like their job. People feel more connected to the work. And so this is, again, how we've connected many tools, many concepts, many methods, and now connecting two different systems together to make a much more powerful enterprise excellence system. So at the end of the day, we really are expecting to observe, ownership. People, own their process. They own the data. They own the standards. They're on board. They're discussing their work, how they're improving every day. We've created questions and learning opportunities through the continuous improvement at the daily management, as well as the Dizuki standard work system. I think we're conserving a lot of time and energy. We can onboard people faster. They feel more connected to their work faster. They're making quality products faster. And frankly, we're generating some excitement. People like coming to the tier meetings. They love using the Dizuki tool. I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, this is fun, which is, shouldn't work be fun? So I'm just tickled that this is all coming together, and that's what we're actually observing on the floor. So just to bring this in for a landing, a couple of key takeaways, again, back to leadership. So as a leader, do you have an innovation model? If not, build one, follow it. Turn innovation loose in your operations. It's not just for product development and just for laboratories. Build a dream team. You're welcome to use my connector, maven, salesman, innovator model, but pull people out of their normal routines, their normal disciplines, and find a team of people that have these unique social gifts that can drive this forward. And then work on the systems that matter. I pointed out 2 systems that were very important to us. Those may not be the places where you start, but pick something that is important to you and start working on and start the digital transformation there. And with that, I'll close and say thank you. Thank you, Jose, for hosting. Thanks for listening, and I'm ready for questions anytime you are.
Fantastic, Michael. What a great presentation. We appreciate that coverage. And we had several questions that have come up while, of course, while you present. So I'm gonna grab as many of those as I can in the time that we have allotted here.
Go fast.
Right off the bat, terrific review of the importance of fundamentals, of excellence, of innovation. You cover the whole gamut from tactics and operations to strategy to culture. So there, you touch on so many important concepts here, and our audience has definitely has caught on to that. So let me just pick some of the themes that have emerged here. This first one here comes from Susan Berchamp, and she asks, it's a bit of a more technical question for you, that 3M has had experience with Lean and Six Sigma for quite some time. And the question is that, and you talked a little bit about that, maybe you can go a little bit deeper now on how has that experience with Lean and Six Sigma enable your digital transformation journey?
Yeah, oh boy, that's a whole session in itself right there. Yeah, we've been doing Six Sigma for 21 years and Lean formally for over 15 years. And again, what I like about that, and I was in that organization for a while, is that we have a higher awareness of waste and opportunities. We use a lot of data. We make data-driven decisions. But a couple of years ago, I think we hit a point where it just wasn't enough. We weren't transforming. We were using tools and the same old data and the same old results. And so we're really looking at breakthrough stuff here. So my team, the ability to scout and look at new things, new ways of doing things, which digital or not, and really break outside the Lean and Six Sigma confines. I actually don't like the word lean because it often means downsizing and being cheap. And Six Sigma is all about stats, and yet I love the methodologies, I love the thinking, but don't get hung up on those two things. Those will take you to an efficiency and an optimization, but I don't think they're set up for transforming. And we're talking more about transforming here.
Excellent, very good, and words matter. So it's a little bit of that friction between the fundamentals, as you said, and some fundamentals of Lean and fundamentals of Six Sigma are wonderful fundamentals.
Oh, absolutely.
But it does become a challenge when the fundamentals and the methodologies become an end to themselves, right? And that's what you get into. It has to be about a higher purpose related to excellence, related to innovation, and those fundamentals are enablers for that, but they are not the goal by themselves. And I think a lot of programs kind of move in that direction. That became a bit of a self-serving, methodology-driven type of approach.
Yeah, you articulate it very, very well. I couldn't say it better. That's exactly what we're saying here.
And William Fuller has a couple of questions. One of them is related to the dominant enterprise-wide approach to change management that you may be using now. You talked about a lot of different potential approaches to change management, and his question is, the heart of his question is about that. Do you have multiple change management approaches, or is there one that is perhaps the leading one, the dominant one for the company?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because we do have an overarching and maybe ever changing change management process in a very large company with 90,000 employees. Of course we do. But I think what I was trying to emphasize is maybe the smaller change management is we are embedded within a division. We've got a playground of a couple of our plants. A couple of our leaders are saying, pick me, pick me. And frankly, most of our successes have come through that process and not because there's a corporate initiative or a corporate change management program. So I think you need both. I think you need corporate governance, somebody looking over your shoulder, having your back, maybe providing some capital. But honestly, most of this innovation happens on a very small scale with a couple of users, a single problem, and then it spreads. And our standing joke is our group is always one phone call away from being out of capacity. So people hear good stuff and they call and they say, hey, we want to be part of it too. And that's the most fun kind of change management, by the way.
You obviously have created a great team when you have this internal consultants to a certain extent to the organization who are being pulled. That's a level of development that cannot be taken for granted. It takes a lot of great work to get to that point. So well done. The question that comes next comes from Gabriela Pereira, and she's talking about, first of all, amazing session, her commentary. And she says, I find culture change the toughest part of the process. Can you share any lessons that you have learned on change management, on things that affect the culture? Anything as you look back, things that you should have done differently or you have learned from?
Yeah, we hit a wall, and after 25 years with the company and working with some top leaders, we had some pretty frank discussions about the culture and how things were going, and we were all very frustrated. And so again, I was very fortunate to be the scout that went out and talked to the Shingo people, the Shingo model, and said, there's something different there. Let's start there. And again, I mentioned in one of the slides, it was the Shingo model plus some of Mike Martin's writing plus Shane. Those guys obviously helped us with some specific systems, but more importantly, they started forcing us to reflect on our culture. And I will tell you, again, after about 10 years of this, being on that part of the journey, our language has changed at our company. I hear top executives talking about behaviors. They even quote, humility and respect and focusing on process. And many of them haven't even read the Shingo model, and yet I hear them using the words, the principles that are cited in the model. I hear them quoting Shane Yount, consistency. The clarity word keeps coming up, and like they haven't even read Shane's book. So I think we're onto something here. It may take another decade or so, but you got to start somewhere, and those are some of my favorite places to start. And it's not just a bunch of jargon, a bunch of books to read. It actually is the start of that transformation.
Love that. Michael, thank you so much. We are out of time right now, but what a wonderful presentation. Great insights from a true leader and practitioner of improvement, of innovation, of culture transformation. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. On behalf of over 2,000 registered participants, it's been a gift to all of us.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Muilenburg from the 3M Company, an organization with over 90,000 professionals who continues to accelerate excellence, continues to accelerate innovation with a proud history and a great future ahead as a result of those approaches. So thank you everyone for the terrific questions. I got to most of them, but not all. And if you wanna follow up on some of these questions, I suggest that post the question, like, share, and provide updates on the LinkedIn that we have for this conference. You can look under my name, Jose Pires, on LinkedIn, and you see it's one of the feature posts that I have. And you can make commentary in there. We'll have some of the speakers come in and provide some answers to questions on that platform as well. Now. We're going to wrap up this one and we're going to start a new session at the top of the hour. And when I come back, I'm gonna come back with the president of the Cyber XR Coalition, April Boyd Noronha, and she's gonna talk to us about the top 4 rules of engagement for digital transformation through human-centered design. Fantastic session. So I'll see you back at the top of the hour. Thank you.